108.
108.
So we watched an interview with Suzanne Giesman on Open Minds the other day, and she is a I guess retired Navy commander who lost her daughter to a lightning strike, and through that she discovered mediumship, and
She picked up a mediumship book on one of those like book exchanges
oh yeah,
before her stepdaughter died.
right before.
They were sailing somewhere and she picked up this book as like, oh, this is interesting. I know nothing about it. And she hid it from her husband because it was woo-woo. But she was reading it, but like on the trip that they got the announcement that their daughter died.
Yeah. And she gets into it and she becomes a medium and eventually connects with her daughter. But the she wrote a book and she's out on at the Edgar Cayce Institute in Virginia Beach, and there's this husband and wife couple hanging around in the back that clearly want to talk to her, and eventually they do, and they're like, our son died from a lightning strike also. And so they start talking.
And you're the only other person that we've ever come across whose child has also died from a lightning strike.
Right. And so she ends up connecting to the son's name. The son's nickname was Wolf. Everyone calls him Wolf. And she ends up, connecting to Wolf, and he's just this ridiculously powerful spirit. And they ended up making this documentary about this I don't know what to say, adventure, and we just watched that. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, it's interesting. The reason I wanted to talk about it is, obviously, anytime I hear something on Gaia, I'm always like rolling it around in my head and I'm processing, and there's always somebody saying the exact same thing in a different way, and it just kind of hits you in a different way. But like to begin with, when we first came across her, and I think a lot of people like her because, and she said this, that because she was a Navy, whatever the highest rank of
I think she was commander.
Officer,
Commander.
or whatever. Well, I don't know any rankings, so that's useless to me, but it seems impressive. But people trust her because they trust the people in military. And then she transitioned from military to mediumship. And that transition, like they feel the rigor that she learned from military that she then applies to her mediumship.
Yeah. She said that like in the Navy, I can't say that without wanting to burst into the Village People song. In the Navy, it's such a left-brained discipline, right? She was an officer, of course, and all the decision making and the strategy and the logistics is all such a left-brain calculated, spreadsheet. It's going to cost this. It's the results of this. The results are this. Percentage chance of success is this, and it all.
Do they calculate the cost? I thought the cost is a blank check from the federal government.
I mean, cost in dollars and cost in human lives and cost in
okay, human lives. Okay, yeah,
whatever.
That's an important calculation.
So everything is a calculation. Everything is very left-brained and organized and rigorous and all that stuff. And when she moved into mediumship, she's like, it's so the opposite. It's you have to actually. She spent years meditating to shut off her left brain, to calm it down, because it was just hype. It was the active half of her brain. Maybe by default, but definitely through the her training and her career. But through mediumship, it needs to be. I don't know if right brain is the right thing, but it needs to be from the heart. To me, the right brain, left brain is the logical, analytical, mathematical, science sciencey side, and the right brain is the creative, interpretive, musical, artistic side. That's how people want to split those up. But it seems that the left brain's not really connected with the heart too much. I mean, biologically, I'm sure it's the same as the other half, but metaphorically, it's kind of its own thing. And then the right brain and the heart seem to connect better.
Yeah,
in
but
a way.
maybe the goal is to have left brain go through the heart.
Right.
You can be logical, but then have it still go through
Right.
the heart.
I
And
mean,
just like the right brain goes through the
right.
heart.
To me, like a wholly integrated.
It was like millimeters from spillage. Yeah.
That's right. Now I'm making you nervous about it.
Huh?
Now I'm making you nervous about it.
Making me?
Making you nervous about it. I'm the one who's always like,
oh.
Yeah. I mean, like, a wholly integrated human, I expect would have, nice, wholesome, complete pathways between all of, left brain, right brain, heart.
Yeah. And so the reason why this resonated with me, one, she resonated with me because she seems to be very aware of the direction that we need to go as a human consciousness, or as a individual souls. And she perceives it as a mission of basically functioning from our heart. She describes it a different way than I would, but at the end, the result is still the same: is we have to open our heart and being able to connect to our heart. And then the thing that, and then she really kind of in the interview on the Open Mind said, please go and connect with the Wolf documentary. And there's a book that she wrote about him too. And then that really, to me, like I was curious because the story has, one, I would just highly recommend watching this documentary.
Mm-hmm.
The story is so like synchronicity driven. Like if you like these like magical little tales of like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe that happened and this happened and this happened.
It's really well done.
Well, no, but the documentary is well done, but the actual story itself has all of these magical moments in it, right? Like the guy ends up being struck by lightning. His name was Mike something, but and he gets struck by lightning at a cemetery that he visits on regular basis. And the drawing that he draws as his goodbye message, basically he knew he was going to get struck by lightning, but the drawing that he draws as his goodbye message has like an eye in the center, and he drew a lot of eyes, it seems like. Has an eye in the center of the eye is yin and yang symbol, which is balance, right? Like learning our balance. And she interprets it in a different way. But this is kind of what I want to talk about in the podcast, is my interpretation of this balance. On the left side, there's a web, like a net. It looks like a net, but it basically looks like a crisscross pattern. But he interpreted it as this net, like the web of connection. And on the right side, like I guess if you're looking at the drawing, is the tree under which he died, and the 2 roses that his parents put there post his death.
Yeah, and they didn't see this drawing until after his death. So it's not like they got the idea from that.
Yeah. So as far as, if anybody needs, like she said, I don't think she says this, but maybe I'm just paraphrasing what I think she says. But if everyone needs like evidence of a miraculous and the idea of what we actually are outside this form, right? Both in living, if we connect to what we are while we're in this form, and then we connect to what we are, but we do connect to what we are outside of this form, right? We could do that in both. We are much more than this body and much more than our logical brain interpreting reality. The fact that he could see the reality or the outcome of his death with this tree and the roses after the parents visited him, right? It shows you the non-conforming nature of reality to our actual thoughts.
Right.
Right. So reality actually functions on its own in a very non-conforming way. And then our thoughts, even though they try to lock reality in this linear progression of time and space, don't actually affect it all that much.
Yeah. And Susanna she calls herself an evidentiary medium.
Well, that's most mediums are.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but some of the stuff
She stresses that. So most mediumship is evidentiary mediumship, meaning you have to derive evidence of who you're talking to, but you have to ask the person who you're talking to and give them things that
there's no way you could know.
No way you could know, so you can give them to the person who you do mediumship for to prove that you're actually talking to the right person. And then, with her, she builds integrity in that. Like that's her proof to herself and others that she's doing a good job.
Yeah, it seems really important to her.
Yeah, but like a lot of mediums.
But like she without doing that, I don't know that she would believe it herself.
No, she wouldn't. So to begin with, that is what she, as a military personnel, needed that to go, oh shit, I'm not just making this shit up. You know what I mean? Like the stuff I would never know. And you almost need that to begin when you start doing mediumship, right? In order to kind of like have trust. So basically the thing is, this information comes through and it comes through in all kinds of weird ways. And you have to basically interpret it. Sometimes it's metaphorical, sometimes it's real. And you have to interpret it, but then also at the same time go, wait, am I just bonkers? Because at any time you're thinking that you're bonkers. And if you're first starting out, you can't tell this channel information that is not you. Like I had a friend who asked me, how do you know when you're channeling, right? And I'm like, well, whenever I'm talking, there's this like now I realize there's this very difficult process of thinking. Like it is very strenuous to think and then to speak. Like I've decided that over the last year or so, it's really difficult to be able to think and then to speak out of your form, like out of my form. It is a very difficult and strenuous exercise. But when I'm channeling, I'm not tired. And I can have all kinds of idiotic thoughts on the side about, monkeys and flowers and waterfalls. But over here, I'm just speaking and there's no exhaustion. And so when mediumship first starts out, the strenuous part is you trying to process the information. Am I right? Am I not wrong? But that's the part that is actually wearing you out. The information just comes through as images or as like flashes or as knowings. Yeah. So yeah, as far as mediumship goes, that's how it goes.
Yeah, to me, whenever I get a download, it feels so different. It feels like it's coming from or entering into a different part of my brain. Like I think it's called subvocalizing, when you like basically when you read the text and you maybe even almost move your mouth in some, as if you're reading it, but to yourself. But I hear it in my head when I read, right? Then that apparently slows you down. And I can't even fathom how you would read without doing that. But when I think, it is, usually in sentences and stuff. So I know what my internal voice feels like. Now I can sound like all kinds of different things, but I know what it feels like. But when I get a message, it hits a different part of me. It's like straight up and down the spinal column. It's not up here in the front where mine is. It's weird, and it gives me like goosebumps every time. Like every sentence is like another round of goosebumps.
Yeah, because I don't feel it physically, but I feel it like how exhausted I am. And I don't know why it's exhausting for me to talk myself. But like whenever
it is tiring to do it to me.
To channel?
Yeah.
Oh, really? To me, it's the opposite.
Well, I never just channel. It's more of a dialogue. But it is yeah. It's difficult to maintain for more than a couple minutes.
Well, see, that's the thing. There's the dialogue where you have to respond back, and that's difficult. If you're trying, right? If I'm trying to have a dialogue with whoever it is that is coming through, it is difficult to be able to insert my thoughts and my sentences into that space because I'm already so high up in frequency that it's difficult for me to insert in. But if I'm channeling and I don't have to insert in, it's much easier to just channel. Maybe that's the difference. It's like I don't want to have a thought. Like it's not because it's so difficult to have a thought. I don't actually talk to them. Mm. Well, there you go. In your case, right? So the self-vocalizing, the way they communicate the best is if you telepathically communicate, right? So the self-vocalization removes telepathic communication. So maybe the practice for you there is like if they or start saying something and then you want to converse, stop vocalizing and actually like communicate from the heart or like the entire body the feeling that has the intent of what is it that you're trying to ask, and then experiment with if they answer, and if the answer from them is accurate based on what is it that you're trying to tell them, or what is it that you're trying to clarify.
I'll have to try that,
because that's less exhausting if you surrender into the communication, and even if you receive their message still through some sort of vocalization, you can answer back or ask back questions without self-vocalization. Anyway, that's kind of a side point. I don't know if it's useful or not, but so we watched the wolf documentary, and then like the story is just incredible. But what I want to talk about is the actual message that he said that he died for a specific reason, in order for the world to have this documentary, in order for the world to kind of awaken to the message that he was trying to communicate with, even though I think in his physical form, he did not have that big of a reach through this message.
Right.
I say physical form.
Yeah.
And he was diagnosed as schizophrenic, basically, on the spectrum or whatever you want to call it. But he told his parents that he was born and to be in two worlds at the same time. So basically, I'm interpreting here the awakened world where it is truth, and then our three-dimensional space where we do not see the truth. He did not say this. This is how I'm interpreting. And all of his like poetry and drawings and art are basically these unfortunate conversations of how much love the heart has and how difficult it is to achieve, communicate, and have this love in the three-dimensional space.
Yeah, no, that's what I got from everything, because they showed a lot of his poems, and we kept pausing and reading them.
And his drawings.
His drawings. That's what I got out of it too, is that he just had like too much love to be in this world, almost.
Yeah. And
he felt too much to be in this world.
Yeah, and this Suzanne, the medium, said that she has never connected to the soul who was stronger or more powerful than this. And then when I heard him speak, because there was a little video that they put in there, maybe like less than 30 seconds even. Maybe you can play it here, pause this and just play it here. So it's part of this video.
I support my friends and who supports me, and this is what this is about. It's called Dark Realm State. It is easy to say to everyone that I am fine and feeling good inside. Why explain the truth? Supporting, loving, and compassionate friend is what I have displayed to all around. When I feel broken, dead inside, and emotion drained, who can I call or talk to for some support? Dealing with my life, take it all in, asking for help or support, deeply feeling these lonely, dreadful nights through nonstop storms in therapy. Thank you.
And so he reads his poem, and that's the video that they put in. And the second his frequency hit, right? Because at first they're talking about him and talking about it and talking about him. And Suzanne just keeps on talking how powerful it is. The second his frequency hits, my entire body just goes into some sort of like spasm. Mm-hmm. And I realize, at least in his poetry, now I don't know how he was as a real person, right? So the only portion of him that I saw visually in this documentary is him already reading poetry. Excuse me. And it is very much Lyran frequency. Now, I'm not saying that he was, because he said he's from another planet. And I'm not saying he was Lyran. And technically being Lyran, I don't even know if it's an applicable statement anymore, because the historically, galactically, the Lyran civilization was destroyed, and then they all flee to other planets. Mm-hmm. So I don't actually know if there is such thing as a Lyran place out there. And a lot of the Lyran teachings actually live in other species and other cultures. So like somebody who would be Pleiadian actually in the long run actually channels in and is trying to teach Lyran like a deep ancient Lyran teaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like Arcturians, when they think of love, if they had to achieve or connect to a larger idea of love or try to open their heart to a larger idea of love, one of the ones that they would, just like us, right? Like if we wanted to understand balancing of the body, we would tune in into ancient teachings of yin and yang, right? And they're like, oh, okay, I'm not of yin and yang. I did not design yin and yang. But this kind of, to us, it is ancient teaching that teaches you a concept that we do not understand, but it goes back through history and we can connect into it and know what balance is, right?
Right.
Lyran's the same thing. So their teaching is, I'm not of it, I'm not from it, I'm one of it because in the sense that it applies to me, but this is a higher knowledge and a higher teaching. So in his poetry, at least in this particular one, he's channeling out Lyran frequency. And, obviously I get very excited. My body gets very excited when I hear and feel Lyran frequency. And yeah, and so this is actually what I want to talk about is when we come into Earth to have an earthly experience, our hearts are not shut off. Now, we have said this before in the podcast, but now I want to kind of like reformulate it through this documentary. And if we do not get shut off from that current, what happens is what happened to him, right? He comes in and he lives in complete remembrance of what it is like to be in an open heart space and not have your heart shut off.
Yeah.
By any means. And truthfully, maybe even he's unable to shut off his heart. And so, which is, I was thinking that is an undertaking, right? An undertaking to come in and choose not to have your heart shut off.
Right.
And I think that's basically what his mission to Earth was. Is I will come in onto Earth into 3-dimensional space where there is no such thing as an open heart. And I will be in both spaces in a sense that I am able to keep my heart open and know this greater understanding and teaching of love. But at the same time, be in a 3-dimensional space where there is really a very limited perception of what love actually is, but not shut off the heart. And struggle, like, so all of his poetry, the struggle of him being in the space where what he perceives is then there's no actual love, real love.
Yeah.
Is, I mean, it's difficult, or almost impossible to be in.
Yeah. I mean, it was difficult to read his poems and see his art and hear him, read one of his out loud. Because it's like, wow, he is feeling things on a level well beyond me, well beyond anything like I've ever done or felt. And it's like, I understand why people would label you schizophrenic if you felt like that. Because that's not normal. That's not common here. And it's like, on one hand, it's weird. It's this weird, confliction of like, I'm envious because I'm like, I would like to feel that. On the same, on the other hand, I'm like, I'm really, empathize with that because it's like that would have been a difficult 3D life as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was born it was June 25th of 1981.
Right.
So about like a year after you were born and about a year and about 3 months before I was born. So he's about our age. And, just looking back, how open the world is, at least right now, for our children to come in and know what an open heart space is,
Right.
and how it feels for it not to be open.
Right. Feels like he was maybe like 30 years too early.
Yeah, he died in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so he spent, I think it was excruciatingly painful for him to be in this world, recognizing that everything that he experiences is this lesser than interpretation of reality. But in truth is, it almost feels like there's no love. And it's really strange to say, because, everything in this world, we talk about, oh, I love this and I love that, and I love you and you love me. And
I love pizza and I love cars.
Yeah, right. And I'm kind of on this mission to redefine love. But I think this is what happens if you are in the larger vibratory frequency of love and that open heart love. And in his case, he has extrasensory perception. And what happens is you can read other people's frequency, and you can actually read other people's hearts. And I can do this, so I can recognize how difficult this gets. If you come up to people and you have this immense amount of love for them, but you feel that their heart is closed. And so when they tell you that they love you, what they actually offering you is not love, but is actually some sort of pain body idea of interpretation. And then what you feel for them is different than what they think they feel for you. Right? So if you're intuitive enough, or if you have your vibratory field open to the actual interpretation of love, and then you feel other people's interpretation of love, and then you feel the disconnect from their three-dimensional place interpretation of love, and then the love that you feel, and it's not even a conversation to be had. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's strange because, right, and this is not a judgment at all. Like, you might as well be speaking two different languages. One is of Earth, and one is of some telepathic clickities from extraterrestrial. It's not even like, you're not even like Russian to English or Ukrainian to English. You're just another planet to Earth. And so the feeling that he had in the loss of love that he felt while he functioned in three-dimensional space was basically extremely painful experience.
Yeah.
And so his job while he was in this space was to somehow anchor in this larger frequency of love that is not of this realm, while obviously suffering himself in this dichotomy of, here's what the truth is and here's what everybody seems to be stuck at.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a lie, really. Right?
Yeah. And that is a difficult life.
No, it's super difficult life. And so to come,
is that, as a strange comparison, is that life, is that mission all that different from Jesus's life and mission?
Yeah, I wonder, Jesus had the Lyran frequency of open heart, right? Like when we talk about that unconditional love that like overrides reality, like when Jesus performed miracles, if those who believe that Jesus performed miracles, if you want to believe that is his ability to override the status quo of limited space, right? Like if our interpretation of this reality is limited, it's limited by the nature of our design, our thought. But when you're in the open heart space, there's no limitation, right? So his miracles are actually functioning from that open space where he's not limited by the nature of reality, because his heart space is not limited by the three-dimensional interpretation of love. So he does, yes, he's in the same frequency. So like this guy, yes, he would not be that much different than Jesus because he is of that Lyran. I say Lyran, you don't have to believe that it's Lyran. It doesn't really matter. He's in that open heart space, like completely overwhelming idea of what love actually is, like transformational amount of love. The interesting part about Jesus, though, if you go back, like I read a lot of Dolores Cannon's books on Jesus and the Essenes and the Qumran, and basically the community in which he was raised. And they were raised into the teaching that there is this larger understanding of reality that humans are currently not abiding by. Right? Like they're choosing to live a limited nature of reality. And the point of the Essenes and the Qumran was to carry the frequency of this larger teachings of the open heart love, right? So I think when you come into a household, and this is not to say anything negative about his parents at all. I'm just saying when you're Jesus and you're born into an awakened society that knows that there is love that is not part of earth. Right then.
Jesus, luckily was born to Mother Mary, who at the very least had been guided by angels about, hey, guess what's about to happen? You've got a mission. You've got a mission here. This is as opposed to, someone who's born to just normal people. But in this child has a higher purpose, higher mission. Everybody will think that they're weird best case.
Yeah. No. So yeah. So his parents said that it's actually his stepmom and dad. So I don't know when his stepmom came into his life, but it's interesting because in Suzanne's case, her stepdaughter, whose name's Susan, was also her stepdaughter. So both of them, like Suzanne and the lady, I think her first name is Beth, were stepmothers to the children, and the fathers were the biological fathers, which there's not a purpose for that.
Right.
So universally, there's a reason for that.
I'm curious how close their ages were when they died. But
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and so right in Mike Wolf's case, Mike Jr.'s case, he comes into his life, and I would assume that his biological mom and biological dad, if they are there in his life, are not like ascended Essene masters preparing for the coming of Jesus, and then therefore facilitating a life for Jesus.
Right.
Now, the Bible doesn't say this, but Dolores Cannon's teachings do say that Jesus was raised in the Essene community, which is the community that practiced transcendental meditation or meditation as part of their everyday life. They practiced this ascended form of living that was on a higher frequency than everything around them was.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus came in and started to teach the ideas of living from open heart and compassion and acceptance and unconditional love, he has a support. He has a familiar support in the community support to where this is the way that maybe not the world lives, but I'm familiar with and I can continue teaching.
Yeah. And he has, encouragement as well that,
whatever
you're not weird, you're special.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Their thought process is not special. We carry the ancient knowledge or really mystical knowledge of the stars that is the actual truth, and the world that we come in three-dimensional space is separate from that. So the goal is to anchor this higher teachings into Earth.
Yeah, I mean,
not special like an ego special.
No, I mean, in as much as you seem to be different than most people, but in a good way versus, you're schizophrenic, so that's in a bad way.
Yeah, as far as societal norms.
Your unique special talents and gifts and connection and higher vibrations are a positive thing that are encouraged and supported, as opposed to, in modern times, we will, here's a prescription for that. That'll quiet the voices in your head. Take that.
Yes. Yeah. And his parents said that they did their best trying to get him to acclimate to it, but he just never fit into the normal rigor
Right.
of school and then like activities after school and then
Holding a
job. Like,
job, yeah.
yeah, the ideas of like these schedules and this pattern, I understand is nonsensical. But for us to be tied to a clock and for us to be tied to here's the way the society does things
Yeah.
and not question that. I mean, now we're finally starting to question that.
Yeah.
But, I know in Ukraine, when I was born in 81, there's no, what is it that you're questioning? That's just not a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it was very similar,
Yeah.
at least in the way you were brought up, because I know you were brought up not enlightened, but in a cult way to where here's the rigor and here's the way.
Yeah. Well, it was a little weird because, my mom didn't work and my dad worked out of the house. So the idea of an 8 to 5 was not really hammered in of like you go to work because dad worked at home. So there were two parents in the house all the time. Dad would go down. He had an office in the basement. He would go in the basement. He would work. He would work a good bit, but I don't know that it was even 40 hours a week. And then he'd have to go on business trips and whatever. But so it.
No, but the school builds in the rigor.
School builds.
You go to school at 7 a.m. and you come home
by the
at
time you're done with
2:30.
college, you're used to
Rigor.
being somewhere, for a considerable amount of time during the weekdays.
Well, college is a little bit different because college does have that open format. Like this semester is these hours, this semester is that hours.
Yeah.
So it prepares you for flexibility more so, I think.
Yeah.
But you still have to show up, right?
Still have to show up.
Yeah. So what I would want to say is being born in the 80s, especially into a family, and obviously he chose to come into a family, to that specific family, where you're not born into the community of Essenes, into Qumran, and then like, oh, look, we just know the truth of the universe because we carry the higher knowledge, this mystical knowledge of open heart. And our goal is to basically spread that knowledge through the world. That is a different position, different poise that Jesus would take than he would take, even though they come in and they're both channeled in and tapped in into the same frequency of open heart love. And so in Jesus's case, he's struggling of like, hey people, here's the way to live. And I am on this path to where you can feel my frequency. And then that there's something up with me. And then I have a following that I'm teaching.
Yeah.
I want to say teaching, not that you make a religion out of it, right? So not that, just teaching. But in his case, he's off that frequency and he comes into the world and the world is denying him that truth. Like the world, I would say, almost spends more time fighting him on the actual reality of truth than even being neutral towards it. So it's not like, hey, you have your own truth. That's fine. But here's the truth of the world. So just, and that's fine. I think where he came in is, here's your truth. But guess what? That's not your truth.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You're wrong. And that's not right. And so to be in that space, to know the truth, because if you're intuitive and you're open to larger frequencies, no one can deny you your truth. So I'm really, really hoping that even though the world was fighting his truth, deep down, he actually, I think he knew, but I think he was just beaten down by the depressive version of everyone else's choice.
Yeah. I mean, there were some friends on the show and they sounded like they were probably supportive, but there's everybody else. There's 8 billion other people, out there. I understand that position, right? Of you feel something, you even know something, but everybody's telling you, yeah, you're wrong. That's not right. You're crazy. That's not how things work. Be realistic, whatever it is. And yeah, that would be a tough life.
Well, no, I mean, besides that, you haven't meditated enough to where you actually touched on that love right? Like if it's not towards a person on earth, it's just like this larger idea of that love, right?
Yeah.
To have that as your truth, right? And know that it exists, but yet be in a space where nothing seems to represent that other than like his art and connection to nature and connection to animals, right? Like they said that his walls in his apartment were just plastered with his poems, and then like his personal art, and also cutouts of pictures of nature and animals. Like because in the long run, that is the only thing that is undividedly offers the true
Right.
frequency of love, because it delivers itself undividedly whole.
Right. I mean, that's,
And so that was it.
I can
for
feel
him.
that, right? It's like, we modern, I guess, probably humans throughout history, have this mental totem pole of, okay, well, here's a tree, and here's a squirrel, and here's a dog, and here's a monkey, and here's humans at the top, and we're the best. End of story. We're obviously the best. Duh. I mean, how could you possibly argue anything else?
Best at what?
The best at being number one, the best at everything. Like, it's just, I think that is just unquestioned that we are the best at everything.
What teaching is that though?
But I think it's wrong. I mean, we are really good at, killing each other. We're really good at all kinds of things, but
We're really good at everything that is not heart.
yeah. So whatever happened somewhere along that evolutionary chain, I don't know. Trees have something we don't. Birds and squirrels and dogs and monkeys have something we don't. And that's not to say that, dogs don't fight each other. They do. And, squirrels probably steal nuts from each other. I don't know. And monkeys clearly get territorial and fight and do terrible things. But like the essence of a tree is just calm and peaceful and loving, and it exists, and it doesn't bother anyone, and it doesn't, I mean, I guess they compete for, the canopy. I understand, but it isn't like this nastiness that humans have developed that we all seem to have inside of us, and it comes out more in some people than others. But so I understand why the connection to nature and trees and dolphins and the ocean and, animals, I understand the draw on that, because it's like, oh, that is, in a very real sense, closer to the truth than humans are, despite our hydrogen bombs and striped toothpaste. They have something we don't, or at least they were able to hold on to it, or haven't lost it, or haven't suppressed it.
Yeah, but I think there's also that. Yes, that is true, but it's also they don't make me feel unsafe, and humans
Right.
do.
I mean, maybe bears make you feel unsafe, but it's not in the same way.
Bears don't make me feel unsafe.
I guess I've never been face to face with an animal and thought that it's going to kill me. I suppose that happens, but conceptually, animals are not scary, but conceptually, humans certainly can be, if not definitely are.
Well, no, everything that we judge in the world comes out of our space of unsafety, right?
Yeah.
And this is going back to like me interpreting his energy and me interpreting how you solve the problem of not being there, right? He was of the open heart frequency, and then could not lock his heart up completely, right? And then every experience that he experienced on earth then came at him from this idea that it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't feel kosher, and it doesn't actually feel safe, because what they're delivering to me is not truth, but he is not able to protect himself from that, even though he feels unsafe, because his heart is still open. And so he's trying to marry the world of unsafety that all humans feel, and realizing that all humans function out of this unsafety state of being that causes them to close their heart. And then himself not able to close his heart. But the truth is, then every relationship he has is seen through that lens of truth. The lens of, I know what love is, and I know what it could be, and I know what I'm offering forward, but I am realizing that I'm in a space that is unable to function out of an open heart because everyone's living in fear and unsafety. And they have naturally closed their heart because they came here to live in a three-dimensional space and only be aware of the fear and unsafety that they have come here to experience. And he's there as a conduit to understand both and to see both, and the suffer in the middle between knowing what the space could be and what it potentially is, because he is in three-dimensional space, feeling the open heart love of a multidimensional human, right?
Yeah.
But realizing that everybody who he comes across is not a multidimensional human and is trapped in a three-dimensional perception of reality where there is no such thing as open heart. And so there's not much, like, that's the thing is, I'm sure through his poems, he has explored the multitude of ways what can I do with that?
I wish they would publish a little book of his poems.
Yeah. But what can you do with that, right? What can you do with that space if you recognize that you are feeling Jesus level consciousness of open-hearted love, and everyone around you wants it,
Sure.
feels it,
Sure.
but doesn't know why they don't have it. And in my case, telling everybody that the reason why they don't have it is because deep down they feel afraid, and the fear and the threat of that unsafety causes them to open their heart, and they simply have to basically explore that. It feels futile and pointless. At least I know it was back in 81 when he was born.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If he ever mentioned to people, oh, guess what? The reason why you are unable to open your heart is because deep down you feel unsafe. And all of the ways right now, you're bulging at me when I say that to you, is just you trying to be in denial of that. But if you sit there and meditate on it for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is the only solution that you need, is to recognize I feel unsafe and let me explore all the ways I do.
What this has been ever since I was last time or 2 times we ago recorded. I pulled that card, and when I read the thing in the book, it said, it's better to have your heart, broken or hurt from love than it is to have it hurt from it being shut off. And that's been with me a lot ever since. And it obviously everybody does this. I've done this. You've done this. Everybody goes, oh, everything is at some level, everything is dangerous and scary. So therefore, if I close my heart off, I can protect it.
Yeah, but that's unsafety.
Oh, yes, this is all unsafety driven. I am not convinced that it works. I'm not convinced that closing it off even protects it. I think we think it'll protect it. Oh, if I don't put myself out there and, let's, in a romantic sense of the word love, then I can't have my heart broken, and therefore I'm safe. I understand that logic, but
I don't think it protects you. Then your heart is broken because you didn't even try.
Exactly. So I don't think it even works.
No, we think it works.
We think it works, but I don't think it works. So, and now this is left brain me talking, but therefore it doesn't even make sense to close it off. Closing it off my goal, I think once you realize it, everybody's goal, in as much as there is a goal, would be to have an open heart, right?
Well, everyone's goal is to feel at peace.
Right. But I think having an open heart is a integral part of that.
Well, I think people don't realize the only way you feel at peace is when you have an open heart.
Right. So in as much as everybody wants or needs or should have an open heart, and closing it off doesn't actually do any good. The only logical thing to do is to try to keep it open as much as possible.
Yeah.
I know, the heart and the mind don't always see eye to eye, but that has been a profound realization over the last, I don't know, week or two, or however long it's been, that I've just been thinking about it, and I'm like, it doesn't even work. I've been approaching it wrong, and not only have I been approaching it wrong, but my wrong approach isn't even effective. So it forces me to rethink a lot of things. I don't know. Logical arguments work well on me. So once I see something that way, that's something that I can't unsee. I can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. I don't
know. No, it
and just in the context of Wolf's situation, situation, yeah, he was living that way, right? It's like it clearly can be done.
well,
I'm not saying it was easy for him.
Yeah, no, in his case, it was just a very visceral experience of interpretation of three-dimensional space while you have your heart open.
Yeah.
For the purpose of, it's interesting that a soul would choose this way. Did you change the color of your case?
On case?
Yeah.
No, same one's been on there.
Oh. Right. Right, from the standpoint of how do I experience, the experiment there was, how do I experience three-dimensional space, feeling the abundance and overwhelming power of love that is the truth and I know is the truth, but at the same time be in a space where it cannot and it does not offer me that. The space does not understand and does not hold real love, a reality, right? Everybody hides from it and runs away from it, right? Quite literally.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody has a potential to be there and has a potential to allow that flow to be their flow, but everyone is too scared and too afraid to even meet me heart to heart.
Right. No, I mean, I get it, because it feels like the right thing to do, the natural thing to do, the safe thing to do, to back up, close off, protect.
Yeah.
It feels like that is just your natural reaction. The same way that if you perceive something coming at you, you'd protect yourself, you'd block it off.
Yeah. Well, we've been trying not to feel unsafe all of our life.
Yeah.
And not
it feels so vulnerable. The opposite of vulnerable we perceive as safety.
Yeah, as opposed to love.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if you're still doing this or not, like from our previous podcast, I'm still trying to stay in that vulnerable space of allowing the unsafety to flow. Right? Like I'm still like, okay, I feel unsafe. Let the rawness of that feeling actually come in and be my truth, as opposed to deny that I feel that way.
Yeah.
And just going through that, right, it reinforces. The only thing that it actually does is it makes you, if you shut off the idea that I'm not safe, then you can pretend like you're not vulnerable, right? But vulnerable to me leads to, that's why the heart shuts off. Because the second you feel vulnerable, you're like, oh, fuck, gotta protect myself. And you protect your heart.
Yeah.
You shut off your heart from love, right? How you would behave, this is not dissimilar, but like Regina tried to ask Suzanne, the medium, that, since she was in the like war room and they were making more decisions of whatever her position in the military was, she said, what would that change if you were in the open heart space that you're aware of right now, right? Because you have been in mediumship and you have opened yourself up to channeling. Therefore, you have opened yourself up to this greater interpretation of what love could be, right? You spend enough time there, you're like, okay, this is just a different space. And she said, what would it change if the people who were in the war room making decisions were flowing in that open heart space? And I this was her answer. And I do think it would go even further than this. She said, well, when you're making those decisions against, like, do you take actions? Do you not take actions? You would try to make a decision from the compassionate point of understanding of why this country is behaving such way, or why this human being is behaving that way. And when you make a decision into action, you would make a decision through the awareness of human nature of unsafety. This is me now adding to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then therefore you would behave not out of fear and unsafety and vulnerability, but you would behave out of an open heart. And I think in the long run, we would have a lot more honest dialogues to begin with, right? Because she's saying, well, if the threat is coming, the threat will come and you still have to react to it somehow. But in our way, if we were from an open heart, we would choose to react to it from an open heart perspective.
Yeah.
That is in a scenario where the threat is coming, but the only way the threat would come if the threat is coming not from an open heart. And so the truth is, when you're evaluating a threat in the war room of the United States and the China is coming at you, you would then evaluate it of what kind of unsafety is causing them to behave in X.
Yeah.
And the conversation you would have with them would be, let us have an honest, open heart conversation of why you're feeling this, why you're behaving as such. What are all the nuances, logical nuances that you have pulled into this recipe that caused you to bring X to us? And let's unravel that. And then only after that conversation, you would choose whether or not you behave militarily or just with talks.
Right.
And I think it would, I think in the long run, she says that basically she's coming from, well, I know what it is like to live from an open hub and I know what I would do in that war room. But she then is thinking that chances are this, whoever's reacting as a threat towards the United States is not behaving from an open heart. And that is true because a threat within itself means they have an open, closed heart and they're just vulnerable.
Right.
But just that, like just understanding of that right there would change the way we behave politically, much less as a human nation, cumulative of Earth.
Yeah, that reminds me of two things. One, I've heard this several times recently, is that, we hear about, world leader X doing whatever, or, politician Y doing whatever. And we're like, oh, they're such a bozo. Why are they doing this? Why are they invading? Why are they, whatever. But you've got to realize that, with just a handful of exceptions, most of these people are actually sane, logical people who are doing things that are, quote, the right things for them or for their country or for their political party or for their cause or whatever. And yes, it may cause horrendous death and destruction to some other group, but just assume that whoever's doing something, especially someone you disagree with, they have reasons that are valid reasons to them. And I'm not saying that in an absolute ethical sense, these are right, wrong, good, bad. I'm just saying everybody has reasons that make sense to them. And these reasons probably involve, I don't feel safe if something's close to my border, so I'm going to push back. I don't feel safe. The country doesn't feel safe. My people don't feel safe. something like that. So
Yeah, if I don't respond, that sets a precedent.
right, I have to act strong. I have to appear strong. Therefore, I need to bomb them back
in order to justify less attacks later.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's just that.
Right. So have some, I don't necessarily agree with all these things these people are doing, but I can have compassion to understand that they're in a situation where, they're doing what they feel is the right thing. I agree?
How amazing would it be if we had like a threatening situation and and we had our representative of our nation who was functioning from this open heart, and we had a representative of a different nation that was, let's say, threatening to us and then therefore maybe not functioning of open heart. And we asked to have a talk, like an open forum talk with that representative of that nation. And it was televised to the world and translated in all the languages that anybody gave a fuck about. And we just talked about, let's talk about from an open heart of why you behaved as such and what threats, your personal threats and unsafety, does this behavior try to mitigate in order for you to keep your people and a nation safe. And then on same thing on our end, go, here's what it does to our people. Here's what it does to me as a representative of our nation. Here's what it does to us as a nation. And what would be the amicable way to solve this if we realize that we're all human, we all love each other, and do we need to go into military actions or any kind of warfare or any kind of anything at all in order to resolve something other than a conversation from why did you feel threatened? Let us understand your side of things. And at the same time, let me show you how our side feels without any judgment, like not like you're wrong and we're right. No, like here's how we actually both feel.
Yeah. You're not, if you feel that way, you're not wrong in how you feel.
No, there's no wrong.
That is, how you feel is the absolute truth.
Yeah. The fact that we would ever go in the judgment, oh, look, they bombed such, therefore they're wrong. No, we just do not understand this facility of their mindset and their unsafety at which they're making these decisions. And the only thing that we could possibly do, quite literally, like everything else would not even be logical, is to not have a conversation to understand the other side.
The goal, the end goal is rarely, if ever, to kill these people, to destroy that building or infrastructure or whatever. That's not the goal. That's some sort of means to make them, the country, the people, the group feel safer because, well, now they see that we're strong, or now they can't launch airplanes off of that.
It's unsafety
thing.
and vulnerability.
So yeah. The second thing I was going to say is this reminds me of Buckminster Fuller's point that we spend however many bajillion dollars on, the military industrial complex. And we feel that we need that in order to, defend and, be the world police and all that. But the reason that we feel like we need to defend is because we perceive all these other nation states as threats. But the reason that they could be threats is because they feel unsafe. And if we were to spend a fraction of that money in, actual humanitarian things that work, right? There's, how many wars have been fought because we don't have, Group A and Group B are fighting over resources. We don't have enough food, so we're going to go. There's not enough food for both of us, so we're going to go try to kill them so that we can have the food or the oil or the whatever the resources happen to be. We as a society, as an earth-bound society, have the capacity to produce enough food for the entire planet. Americans probably throw away enough food to, and I know we're not going to ship over logistics, but if we spend a fraction of that military budget on feeding, clothing, housing whatever, the people who don't have it, those are not groups that are going to evolve into nation states that want to destroy America.
Yeah, I think when Bucky was writing that, this was a very old, outdated Cold War type of thinking.
It feels
I don't think
applicable.
it's
It feels applicable in that we can have compassion to other people's unsafety things, especially physical unsafety things.
Compassion, period. Yes, but using our money in order to mitigate unsafety is not. Do you see what I'm saying? His argument was, we feel unsafe because all the other nations want to attack us because they are lesser than us. So let's go ahead and spend that money on other nations so they're less likely to attack us. But we're still not addressing the unsafety.
We're not addressing the psychological unsafety, but we can address the physical unsafety to some degree.
In order to mitigate the risk.
I mean, he's saying, A, this is a good thing to do ethically, and B, it's money well spent from a national security point of view too.
Yeah, yes, but think about what he's not saying. Let's, on the individual basis, a person by person, spend time addressing our own unsafety.
No, that's not mentioned at all.
So yes, I'm not saying Bucky's plan would not work, and there is compassion, and it is love, and you can be in that space. But I disagree with it on implementation basis as a solution to anything, because if you're not addressing the unsafety is rooted there, not from lack of food right now, not from lack of housing right now, but from the deep-rooted childhood trauma that is not being addressed as unsafety, and everything else is a propagation thereof.
I mean, yes, both. I think it's both. I mean, you get.
Okay, here's what's going to change. This is what the outcome of it would be. If you implemented Bucky's plan, and let's say, I don't know whatever the made up name of the country that you want to say. Let's say their nation is impoverished. Their people are third world and they don't have housing, and somehow United States has manipulated the regions around them / infrastructures around them to where it made them worse. And so now these people are not only poor, not only without, water, electricity, just resources to just function, they're also radical against Americans, which is I think where he was coming from.
I don't know that it was even that. I think it was
when he was writing the book. That's what it was. It was a Cold War era book. All these people hate us. Why? All because we invest into money as opposed to people.
Maybe.
Right.
I mean, we have done these things, and we have inadvertently, let's assume, radicalized many, many countries and groups of people across the world against us.
But even without, even without radicalization, let's say these people have no intentions of attacking the United States, and they're just simply impoverished, right?
Yeah.
So they're just in the bad form of living, right? This is not against feeding, and this is not against going in and building housing. But if you go in and you offer money and you offer resources to provide them food and to provide them housing, it gives them hope. It gives them hope for the future.
Mm-hmm.
But their end unsafety deep down that they grew up with and spent last 20 years experiencing the truth does not change just because all of a sudden the new situation is better. Right?
Right.
They might not be radical. They might not be starting wars. They might not be going and killing and genociding within their country or whatever. But the mental, emotional aspect of unsafety and vulnerability still needs to be addressed.
I agree.
If you want to make a meaningful change.
I agree. And so maybe there's some sort of, I don't want to use the word therapy, but some sort of, therapy available as well. I mean, you can imagine some, whether it's like a gang in a city that, it's some impoverished area of the city, and joining the gang is the only way that they they perceive to, to make money or to, belong or whatever. And it's like, if you can deal with money might help fix that if it's applied in the right way.
Here's what it would do. Money might fix it to where it gives these people a time to pause where they're currently not fighting off survival.
Yes, because it's hard to reach self-individuation when you're starving to death.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So yes, so the starting point is like in Ukraine, right? The idea that you're going to pause and like not go come May planting potatoes and not come April like organizing which potatoes you're going to plant.
Yeah.
So then you can spend the entire summer, planting and taking care of those potatoes. So come September, you harvest the potatoes. So then you survive the winter.
Yeah.
Like that cycle.
Yeah.
If I didn't participate in that cycle, even as a child, there's no cognitive ability for me to propagate how I'll survive into the next year.
Right.
The potatoes were just the most important thing, right? I want potatoes now. I might have potatoes today. Okay. Anyway, so right. So to pause and to go, wait.
Birthday potatoes.
I will pause today, and instead of planting potatoes or raking potatoes,
I will reflect and go inside and meditate.
Yeah. So
not an option.
Yeah, not an option because we are not surviving before potatoes.
Yeah.
So coming in and taking care of the basic needs, but that's the argument for basic universal income. If we offer people some sense of security and safety, it will give them time to pause, and that's the hope, and reflect on the larger idea of their life, and then give them a chance to start functioning out of the heart space as opposed to a space of complete vulnerability and unsafety that usually have you behaved really kind of even unethical and unmoral by your own standards. Right.
Because when you're, right, I don't steal, but I can see how, like, if me or my family is starving to death and there's a loaf of bread behind that window, yeah, maybe. I get it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not even stealing, just like that rigidness to like the hunt, the hunger to survive for resources, right? That the idea of always be on the outlook, on the fight, on the offensive.
Everybody else becomes a threat or a potential threat.
Yes, and so there's no open heart because if you're actively not going and stealing, and not going and offending, you're always on the defensive.
There's only so much of a pie. Yes. And I get if you get a bigger slice, that by definition means that my slice is smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that's what I'm saying. Yes, I think to Bucky's point and to your point, just addressing here's the food and here's shelter and here's just like medicine whatever. And here's clothing for your children and here's just survival. Here's some potatoes. Do you know what I mean? Here's some onions and here's some salt. Right. So if you just do that, we can have the potatoes with sausage and the onions.
Oh yeah.
And the banana peppers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, right. So if you just take care of that, then here's what it does. It allows your heart to not be a complete fortress, and it allows you to at least pause and have a thought of an open heart. Now, and I'm not saying universally that is how it works. The second you could become threatened and your baseline survival is threatened, your heart is shut off, and then therefore you're on the defensive. But for me, it was. I
don't think it has to be, but I think it usually is.
In Soviet Ukraine, that is how I was raised. Like I saw that my heart was shut off. Not because I didn't want to love, not because I did not want to experience this larger, unbelievable potentials of, larger than earth love, but it was to go on defensive mean not to be vulnerable, and not to be vulnerable meant to have a closed heart.
Yeah.
I don't know why or how that propagates. But yeah, it for sure did.
Yeah.
And as a child, now I can look back and I can slowly see how the more threatened I felt, right? The more there was examples of how life is threatening, the world's threatening, the life is threatening. Come my teenage years, especially by the time I moved into the United States, that was a huge thing. The difference between open heart in Ukraine, even though the people seem very harsh, but just the nature of open heart people in Ukraine versus the open heart people in the United States. There's no open heart people in the United States. Like that judgment, I know it's a harsh statement to make.
Right.
But when I came here at 14, I was like, fuck, there's no one here with an open heart.
Right. And, and in general, not many people are starving to death in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not many. I mean, there are obviously people who starve, and there are obviously homeless people, and there are people without access to, yes, but in absolute numbers, it's not as big as it probably was in Soviet Ukraine.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but when we had friends, and I'm not saying like to random people, right? Because they a lot of people say that like so former Soviet Union people, if they're not Americanized, they're very harsh. But like in public, it's public, right? Like these are European cities, you just walk around, you don't interact with people's energy. But in the close family and friend circles, that is just open-hearted, the most warmest flow of energy to where you would do anything for anyone, period. And I have yet to see that or find that in the United States.
Yeah, it's weird.
I can name like less than 2 or 3 people that I have come across, and you probably know one of them, who I would feel that way with. Here. That's not my family. That's not family. Right? They're just not open-hearted. They're always on some sort of defensive. They're always on some sort of, wait, do I say this? Do I say that? Like there's analyzation and logic and all of that feeds in. And even though most of the people in here are well off, right? Like in the United States, even the homeless people on the streets have food. In Ukraine, no, we were not homeless, but there was times where we didn't have food, right? And there was no soup kitchens. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you're not hustling for potatoes, but we were fortunate enough to where we had land to where we can hustle for potatoes. But some people don't even have land.
But you got to hustle. You don't hustle.
Oh no, yeah. If you don't hustle, you don't survive.
Got potatoes. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I mean, right, to kind of go back to Wolf's documentary or his message, through his poetry, right? And like Osho says this, the positive part of Osho says this, that the only way you can start to touch and express this larger, real version of love is not through action, not through anything other than this innate knowing that this is what an open heart love is. And if you were to say that to somebody, the only way you could do that is through poetry. Because no words on earth would ever come to describe the true expression of love. And then, this is also going back to Tom Canyon's channeled books from the Hathors, who are Lyran energy, and the Arcturians. They also say that our words just fall short to any expression, especially I think in English as well, to what it means to love someone from an open heart and express that to them.
Yeah.
And when he recited his poetry, his heart was so open and so flowing, right? Then in that clip that we played earlier, if it was made it into the podcast, that it was just pure transmission of love. And in his case, it was a mixture of the love that he felt and then his contemplation of what it meant not to feel the expression thereof reciprocated in the space.
No, there was a sadness to it.
Because he was depressed about the fact. Do you remember, this is, I know that I may keep on bringing this up a lot to you, but do you remember the time when you and I almost divorced over, I told you that there was a version, I didn't say this at the time, but
yeah,
that there is a way to live in society without police, without the judicial system, without any laws or rules or regulations and have the society be thriving and filled with love.
Yeah. And I absolutely couldn't see it because I'm like, yeah, but look at this, look at these bad people. Look, they're out there. We have to have procedures in place to defend from them. And we have to have all these systems. And yes, I remember this.
Yeah. And I think we spent like 3 days arguing this.
Yeah.
This is like in the beginning of our spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And I connected to that frequency within myself.
Right.
Like I told you, I'm like, at the time you probably thought I was crazy. I'm like, no, I remember / know there is a way that I used to live where this was the case. Like there was zero doubt in my mind. I remember living in society where there was no systems, there was no rules, there was no regulations, there was no police, there was no judicial systems, there's nothing. And it was just pure love flowing through the entire essence of reality.
I imagine that I could be wrong, but it feels like a lot of ancient societies, maybe Native Americans were a lot closer to that than we are now.
Yeah, like Suzanne mentioned that Native Americans and Mayans, their ancient teachings are always emphasizing the open heart love, right? And the Mayans and the Toltecs and all of them were super into sacred cacao, right? Which was like this sacred process of initiation to remind you to go into an open heart and connect to the large aspects of yourself. I say that as we are always drinking cacao. Right. And so I was, the reason the divorce aspect came up, and our son, I find this hilarious. Our son saw us arguing for 2 days nonstop. And I said, if you do not see this way of living, I cannot be with you. I told you that. And it didn't make sense to me, but it was that essential to me that, do you know what I mean? And now I think it's kind of funny that I said that, but it was my truth. And even though it wasn't the truth in the now, at the time, this is maybe is this pre-COVID or is this post-COVID? I don't even know. Either right in 2019 or 2020.
It's whenever I was doing the deck.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was probably 2020-ish because
COVID project.
So this was 5 years ago. And I remember thinking, I cannot be with someone who, even though this is not our potential in reality right now, who does not see a reality where this exists. And I did not understand why it was so important. But I think this goes back to Wolf's message is he did not see a way that system, even though it was truth everywhere else, and then he knew it as his truth, couldn't exist in this space. And he had no one around him that could even touch on that potential. And I think to me, the reason why I said that, it was because it was it was the essence of why the heart was closed. The fact that you need a police system means you're threatened. The fact that you need a judicial system means the situation of the country is such that there are people who are likely to do harm onto the others, and there needs to be this overlay system that would be the ruling factor of who is right and who is wrong, right? There's a society in which one person is even feasible to behave ill against some other person.
Right.
But that society literally only exists in a situation where there's no such thing as open heart living.
Right.
And because I know the way to live in the other way, it's it was so, what would be the word? I don't even know to describe that now. It wasn't threatening, but it was just the most saddening interpretation of reality where you were living in such space where I was completely bonkers and there was no way
I couldn't see it. I absolutely couldn't see it. I was blinded by the reality of where we are, and I couldn't even fathom. I'm not even talking about oh, well, okay, in some sort of crazy dream utopia, I guess if we can, if we can make sure that there's no mentally ill people and we can we can have all these constraints around it, then I guess hypothetically we could, I'm not even talking about that. I couldn't even, I could like maybe stretch it and see that, but that's not what no, I get it now. I didn't get it then. I didn't see it. Now it's like it is a bit sad and depressing and frustrating that that's not where we are, because I understand it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I guess we have the police and but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Meredith's point was asking Suzanne, like, if you were in the war room, how would this be different, right?
Yeah.
But in the long run,
you don't need a war room.
You don't need a war room.
Yeah, right. If you take it out to its full potential, you no longer need the war room or the Navy or I don't know, maybe you need police to, if there's an accident or something, but you don't need the police to.
Yeah,
you don't need an armed police force because.
Yeah, an accident and then you're gonna help block the traffic.
I fell out of a tree and I need someone to, paramedics, and I need a police. It's not that. Right. It's that the problems that plague society today involving interpersonal interactions. Those problems aren't really a thing from an open heart space. People aren't out there trying to cheat each other or murder each other or steal from each other, or if I get it first, then I get it and you don't get it. So I got to make sure to hurry up and take it. And we got to push the borders, and we have to fight the wars and bomb the things and do the economic manipulation and send in the CIA to whatever. Those aren't things when everybody is living from an open heart.
But it's interesting. Whenever I bring up statements to people that assume, like, sometimes I say things on purpose to say, oh, if we're in the open heart space, we don't need this, or this doesn't happen, or this is not the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that to certain people or to some people, the idea of these things are not even being it.
Mm-hmm.
It is almost impossible, or they can't even understand that concept. And then therefore, this reality doesn't exist because they are in the closed heart space where they cannot even see this concept.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So I say some things on purpose in order to anchor in this concept, in order to hit the barrier of their reality that has this completely not be it. Right? And to some extent, this reality is so bonkers and is so threatening that the only thing it does is showcases to them within themselves that there is perceived threat in the universe, as opposed to even imagining in the universe where there is no such thing as a threat.
Yeah.
When you're threatened by the universe and your chakras are shut off at the bottom and you feel unsafe and you're refusing to admit to your own unsafety, you cannot even imagine a possibility of anything other than needing to keep your walls and fortresses up in order not to mitigate the unsafety that you're feeling. And then therefore, the perpetual reality you keep on facing is solely the reinforcement of that reality. You cannot even experience the truth. And if I'm elsewhere and I'm telling you your truth, it's like some sort of fairy tale that not only do you find like, oh, Tanya's just bonkers. No, you find it threatening. My talk to you about this life that I know that exists, whether it's a parallel reality or an extraterrestrial interpretation of life, it doesn't matter, was threatening to you.
Yeah.
You could have said, oh, okay, that's interesting that you have that concept, right? And you would have just left it there.
No, but I wanted to argue it.
It was threatening.
Yeah.
Threatening.
What always strikes me is that whenever we have, whenever I assume everybody has this idea of some sort of extraterrestrial species out there. Let's say that, secretly under the surface of Mars, there's this Martian civilization full of Martians, right? Whatever they look like, doesn't matter. We don't think that there's, the North Martians hate the South Martians, and, the blue Martians hate the green Martians, and they all have this. No, obviously the Martians are one coherent society that is safe and stable. It feels bizarre to think that, Martian, that's that crime-ridden place that full of, they're always killing each other and blowing things up. We figure, I never thought that. I've always thought that any society that's out there, especially if they're advanced enough to, be spacefaring and whatever, they've solved these societal problems that stem from unsafety, right? So here we are on Earth, and this country doesn't like that country, and they're all this nonsense that is 100% from unsafety. It just reminds me of how humans just think that they're the best thing since sliced bread, but we're just so far behind on our heart-opening development.
Because we're afraid.
Because we're afraid, right?
Because we're unsafe and vulnerable.
Right. Maybe in movies, they're, in Star Wars, yes, there's these rough, basically Western tavern style cities. But if you think, do you think that the Pleiadians have some sort of armed police force roaming the streets in order to ensure public safety? Doesn't feel like that's how it would work.
No, anytime you start talking to somebody about this open heart space living, the amount of arguments go, and if you give them an example about Pleiadians or like Lyran offshoots, they still teach Lyran teachings, right?
Mm-hmm.
The amount of examples that go up of why it wouldn't work are endless. But that is a conversation you're having because you cannot even imagine a scenario where you're safe.
Well, yeah. And you as soon as it's two people, it happens here on Earth. You get two people together, two people who don't have a proper open heart, but that's everybody. You just pick two random people, and maybe you can get along. You're not necessarily going to kill each other, but you may also be always be a little suspicious. What are they really up to? Are they going to eat that last potato? Maybe I should get it before they get it. I don't know. Whatever it is, we have this closed-hearted, deep-rooted suspicion, and we just need to protect. We need to protect ourselves at the expense of anything else, including other people.
Yeah. And thus, I want to maybe point out that reinforces the loop of the reality that we're in.
Of course. If we can't even do it with two people, how are we going to do it with 8 billion people?
Yeah. I've had conversations like this to where I had somebody I was talking to, and then they said oh my gosh, this problem is so big, it's unresolvable because I don't even know how we would go around approaching this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I would step back and I would go, the only reason that this problem exists is because everyone that is involved who sees this problem does not have an open heart format. Therefore, it reinforces this problem.
Yes.
So it's, I don't know if make sure I'm doing a good job at describing this. There is no problem, period, if people are in the open heart.
Right.
And the only reason that this exists and the size that you perceive it to be at is because everyone who's positioning and depositing their frequency is functioning from the closed heart.
It's the self-perpetuating problem that we all have been kind of born into. We're born, we develop unsafety. This unsafety causes us to act certain ways, which, and then we have children and we instill more unsafety in them, and that perpetuates and keeps kicking it down. And here we are, however many generations later, and we all are suspicious of each other, and some of us want to kill each other. And I don't know what kind of great reset.
I'm not even talking about the killing of each other. I'm talking about just like any problem that feels
killing each
out
other
of
is at
control.
the extreme end of it, but but at the very least, we're all very, closed off, cautious, suspicious, to, some more than others, some more obvious than others, but we all inherently feel that way because we all feel unsafe, because we felt unsafe at a very, very young age. I don't know if there's a way to never feel unsafe as an infant, to just bypass that. Maybe there is. I think money should be spent on trying to figure that out. But at the very least, okay, you felt unsafe very young. How can we address that also very young to start raising people, and and adults too, to start releasing that?
Yeah.
Because once a large enough group of people starts releasing that and living from an open heart space, I think society will change drastically in a positive way.
Yeah. No, everything that is a problem will quite literally not even be there. Because the only reason that problem exists is because you're reinforcing it through the density that you're holding through your unsafety.
Yes.
It's like, as far as like quantum mechanics or whatever you want to call that's how it works.
It's a self-perpetuating thing. It's a problem because it's a problem.
If you were in the SpaceX and SpaceX dictates the outcome of Y, then the outcome of Y is present because you're in the SpaceX. But if you go into the space of Z, guess what? The outcome of Y by default cannot exist because you're coming from a space of Z.
Yeah.
And so people
it's almost frustrating because it's like
super frustrating.
It's like on one hand, it feels like it's this impossible to solve. What can we possibly do? This is how it is. This is how it's always been. And on the other hand, it's like, just snap out of it.
No, but I say that realizing that I'm a human, and when I'm fearful and unsafe and vulnerable, the only thing that I do want to do is close my heart in order to protect myself.
Me too.
And so forcing myself into that space makes it super clear that coming from X dictates a Z, but if I'm in, dictates a Y, but if I'm in Z, it doesn't actually matter what this space is.
Yeah.
Because the Z dictates the Y,
right.
And there's nothing to be fearful of because you're already in an open heart space, and then therefore everything is at oneness with love and heart.
Right.
So it's like I get frustrated when I'm there and I see it, but I do point out, and this is, I'm not saying I'm always there, but it's super important to realize that, look, I am not there. I'm back at X, feeling fearful, and I feel threatened by the world. And then therefore, to recognize, the second I'm unsafe and fearful and vulnerable and I feel fearful of the world, I then take responsibility for the why that I'm seeing.
Yeah. No, it's over the last week or two, it's been like, look at how easy it is to fall back into that. Look at that. I've got 45 years of experience that whenever anything even, is remotely threatening or unsafe, or even has the idea that maybe it could be, it's just immediate close off, protect, defend,
argue.
It's
run away.
It has become funny how literally everything is or can be potentially triggering depending on how much I want. If I'm like, I can pick literally anything and I can make it triggering.
I think everything is triggering.
Right.
If we're in that closed heart space, I think the truth is everything is triggering, but we have learned to numb ourselves off from recognizing that we're triggered.
Yeah.
Like just like the other week, I talked to somebody and I said, it's because deep down we feel unsafe. And because their mind like couldn't even go like, well, no, why would they feel unsafe? Like, why would I? No, that's not unsafety. And they automatically pushed off even the idea of me saying that they feel unsafe. I was wrong right away because their heart has been blocked off on so many levels of why this is logical, why this is the right thing to do, why this has nothing to do with unsafety, or why this is just a normal human behavior. And they will have a bajillion of excuses of why their behavior is correct, because deep down, they will never pass this threshold of, oh yeah, fuck, deep down, I just feel unsafe.
Right. That's my go-to is, well, this is normal human behavior. I mean, how many times have I said that about God knows how many things? And, normal human behavior, I have always defined as that which, basically common human behavior, that which the majority of people do. And while that may be true, that may be what a whole bunch of people do, that doesn't, that is an orthogonal concept to, yeah, but is that how we should live? Is that how you want to live? Is that an open heart way to live?
No, but you can't even go into that conversation because notice when I said that to that person, notice like the amount of floodgates that went up to reinforce the fact that I'm wrong and they're right. Because deep down, I hit on something that was so threatening, then the conversation just has to be discounted out.
Right. I mean, you could go back,
oh, I don't even understand how that could be unsafe, or I don't even understand how that could have anything to do with unsafety. Right. Their behavior is threatening because they are threatening. It has nothing to do with unsafety.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they wouldn't even allow to see why past someone's behaving this way because maybe they are vulnerable. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was a complete shut off from like, what?
Yeah. I mean, like, you go back to, I don't know, 100,000 years. You might imagine some tribe where all they do is train warriors to go out and kill other people and steal stuff. It's like, that's the normal behavior. It's like, and sure, it is. It checks all the definitions that I just listed. It's what we always do. It's what we've always done. That's what we will always do. We train people to be warriors. We go out and we steal and rape and murder and take. And you're like, yeah, but is that what you want to do? Is that an open heart thing to do? It's normal. It's common, sure. But is it what you, is it?
Well,
I'm avoiding using right and wrong.
Well, no,
here,
I think everything you're doing is to function in blindness out of unsafety.
Right.
Like,
it's easy. The normal thing is the easy thing to do. Yeah. That's just I'll fall in line and do whatever everybody else does.
Like arming our forces and having the most awesomest military in the world is there without any question of whether or not it's right and wrong, because we're coming from the standpoint of X where we have to defend.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? So we're not even functioning from the standpoint of questioning whether or not this is something that we should continue to do, because we can't even get to the space to where that's something you question. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is not a space where you question behavior. That it's a social norm for us to give up 20% of our paycheck to military complex. Because guess what? We have always done that because that's what keeps us safe.
Yeah.
And to question
that's what keeps us safe.
But to question that idea would mean, wait, what do I feel unsafe? Right?
Right.
Do we feel unsafe? What are we protecting ourselves from? But deep down, instead of being able to even think that thought, because deep down, truthfully, it will go to, wait, why do I feel unsafe? Like, let's not look at it nationwide or earthwide. Sooner or later, you don't want to actually go into ... Why do I feel unsafe? It's not the military complex. That 20% of the military complex is a really easy excuse to continue to feel unsafe yourself and not think about it.
Yeah,
and not do the due diligence to know thyself. And to actually go, fuck, I'm vulnerable and threatened as Tanya, as a human being of not as a member of the United States of America, not as a member of Earth, not as a member of our galactic quadrant that fights over whatever idiots on the other galactic quadrant. Like, we don't have to think that far.
Yeah.
It's easier to think removed than to go, oh, fuck,
Right.
Why is it time to feel unsafe?
Right. It's easy to project it out into, well, there's bad guys out there, so I'll pay my taxes, and then that tax money gets funneled into this machine, which keeps us safe. And we'll see the attention traveling episode about how you can kind of how that happens, right? We give up our sovereignty to well, I feel unsafe. I don't know what I can do about that. But here's someone with an idea. We'll just make more bombs. So okay, here, take my tax money and do that. Now it's no longer my problem, and it's not my fault.
I don't have to think about why I feel unsafe.
About it. Yeah. Okay. Someone's doing something, and and if it doesn't work, well, what could I have done differently? I can't stop whoever's from coming over and invading. So I did what I could. I paid my tax.
This will never happen. But if every single action that we have taken through the day was evaluated against, is this in any way related to me feeling vulnerable and unsafe? We would all be flabbergasted.
No, that's
by how many of them are solely there because we feel unsafe and vulnerable.
That's where I am right now. It's comical how much of my life, my thoughts, my actions are driven by it. It's just ridiculous. It's basically everything.
Yeah. No, but to wrap it back up, Wolf's frequency. I don't know if anyone, after watching the documentary or maybe like reading through some of his poems or looking at his artwork, I think it should be published, because it was a struggle between being human and then at the same time knowing what love is. And I can relate to that. So maybe this is slightly a selfish podcast of like, look, you people. But just maybe having someone out there who quite literally knows what open heart is and has never been disconnected from it and knows what it is like to function in it, and not like Jesus or Buddha time frame, like 1981 to 2010 time frame, right? Like this human being was here on earth just 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that human being was the essence of the one frequency of love. I don't know if that's helpful or not, right? But of course, with him, he struggled with what it means not to feel it here. So maybe that's helpful within itself. Like maybe that is how humanity feels deep down, and that loss of, like, how do I deal with knowing this love, wanting this love, and recognizing that there's nothing around me that offers that. But it's a conduit into, that's what the truth is, right? Like what I want to say about him, the message is, Suzanne says the message is to balance yourself. And that's fine. Yes, we cannot feel that love unless we balance ourselves. And what she thinks balancing is different from what I think is balancing. You can look at, past 106 episode of our podcast and actually my idea of balancing. But through that balancing, you go to where he was and where he always was. He felt this immense love that is undescribable, unquantifiable, obviously unreachable if you're functioning from the space of pain, body, and trauma and unsafety and vulnerability, but does exist as something that we can touch. And what's important, I think this is what the gift is, you can be in 3-dimensional space and have that love.
Yeah.
Like he was literally the prototype for, can a human being in 3-dimensional space, having experienced 3-dimensional reality and trauma and unsafety, stay in the open heart? And the answer is yes.
Right.
So when he said he was in the 2 different places at the same time, he held on to a higher, let's say 5th-dimensional and up frequency, and he was also in a 3-dimensional and lower frequency, right? So he was able to hold the 3-dimensional space and know what the pain and love and suffering feels like and what unconditional love feels like. And he was literally bridging the 2 gaps,
right?
Which is magic within itself. Like, right. I understand that in his case, it equated to suffering, but it's magical. And I think the reason why people are resonating with this message right now is because deep down we're realizing, oh shit, you could experience the unconditional open heart love, the space of Z, without having to go in space of X and then therefore propagate the Y that we don't actually want. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the space of Z is endless, open format, no need for judicial system, no need for police, no need for fire department. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a fire department from the standpoint of love. But just there as actionary visions of facilitating more love. Right? The police would only be there to facilitate more love.
Literally to
propagate more love.
I guess in the truest sense of protecting and serving.
Yeah, which is, I think we lost that connection. Like a healing center existed back in the olden days. Like when you look back at the Hawthorns and the Lyran energy, there were such thing as healing centers. But the healing centers were there as a amplifying sources of love within themselves. So the healing center was this huge beacon that just pushed out love, right? That's what a lot of Egyptian temples were, just these beacon centers of propagations of love. And then if you ever had your energy dip down low for whatever reason, right? Like not because you did not feel love, but just because you were net depleted or whatever, you were off balance, you would go into the energy center. And the only thing it offered was love. Like just this reinforcement of love. So like on Earth, back in the olden days when we still remembered unconditional love, that is what Egypt was. And this is what all these ancient temple structures was, with these reinforcements of frequencies of love, to where if you ever needed a reminder, it wasn't there as a hospital to where you're going to be shut up with morphine and, cut open to carve out some organ that is currently dysfunctioning. No, it was there as a balancing center for you to recalibrate back into that one frequency of love.
Right. Because it is so easy for us humans to fall out of it.
For humans, yes.
Yeah. To the point where it's difficult to stay in it. Like it's so beautiful when you're in it, but it is so easy to just, oh God, the neighbor again. Oh, or whatever. Anything, just the dumbest stuff. Oh, there's that scratch on the wall. Oh, got to take care of that. Oh, there is no scratch on the wall, but
You just painted the walls. What the heck?
I'm just looking at a wall, oh gosh, now I feel terrible myself because it's still there and I haven't done anything. And, I will fall down some sort of, shit spiral over the stupidest stuff.
But again,
because
reminder, the awareness on safety.
It all goes to unsafety.
Yeah, it's not about the scratch on the wall. It's about how you feel about yourself having that scratch on the wall. And deep down, guess what? Through whatever rigmarole, it comes down to vulnerable and unsafe.
Yes.
But it's like nobody would ever admit that the scratch on the wall makes you feel vulnerable and unsafe.
Right.
Because we never take our time to be in that space where we are allowing to be that vulnerable.
Right. And now it's like, okay, we guess that makes me feel bad for whatever reason, ... I feel like I'm just not good enough because, that's still there and I haven't cleaned that up and whatever it is. Yeah. Having spent a little while now of really feeling that kind of nonstop, it really shows you how much of our human lives are spent doing that. And it's like 98% of it.
But what I want to say is each time you do that is the time you fight away from staying in the open heart.
Yes.
It's the expense, the cost of doing that is actively trying to pull away from your open heart space. That is it's yanking you like, here's where love is. Here's where oneness is. Here's where surrender is. But the more time you spend denying the fact that you feel unsafe and vulnerable is more time you spend quite literally like, remember that I'm seeing Emin dragging the chair up the hill.
Yeah.
You have this huge load that is impossible to carry, which is all the ways you don't want to feel vulnerable. And you have this rope and you're trying to pull this load up the hill. And that is an endless struggle of not trying to feel love.
Sisyphean task, basically.
What?
Sisyphus.
Yeah, sure. I don't know what. Yeah, sure. I know that's what the metaphorical video was, but I don't actually know what Sisyphus story is.
Oh, he was cursed to always be pushing this boulder up a hill or up a mountain, but then it would always end up falling back, and he'd have to keep pushing it up. So he was forever pushing this boulder back up a hill.
Yeah, but that's what I want to say. That is what we're doing. Anytime we are not allowing ourselves to feel the vulnerability and unsafety that is actually our truth, we are endlessly trying to fight this boulder uphill. Like as a task, like we are spending our entire life pushing a boulder uphill.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't, it feels scary and it feels unsafe and you feel vulnerable and that's it. Like you don't even know what's at the end. You don't even know why you're pushing the boulder. You have always been pushing the boulder up. And we're lost. And so when I say to somebody, oh, guess what? This thing that you're dying over does not exist if you open your heart, because the only reason it exists is because your heart is closed. People go look at me flabbergasted like I'm from some sort of other galaxy talking to them about other galaxy shit that is not actually the truth. But that is what Earth system is. It is a propagation of our internal reality that we're refusing to acknowledge. And our internal reality will continue to exist as long as we refuse to acknowledge what we're actually doing out of which scary space.
Yeah.
And the second we stop being in a scary space, not acknowledging that we're scared, the reality is different. That is like Earth 101. That is like how matter works.
The fact that it's do you have opinions on this?
Yeah, right.
The fact that it's this habit, this self-perpetuating, self-justifying habit that, well, this is how it's always been, therefore this is how I will continue to do it, is so dangerous.
But that's a defense mechanism, once again, not to go into vulnerable space.
I mean, it is not far off of some sort of 1984. Well, we're at war with East Asia. We've always been at war with East Asia type of thing.
Is that a movie?
It's a book.
Oh, okay.
I think they probably made a movie too. 1984 is like the example of dystopia.
Is that what Aiden needs to watch or not?
I don't think that was on the list.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I read it. It's George Orwell. When someone describes something as Orwellian, it's that. It's not good. It's
Wait, is that the same guy that did the Citizen Kane or not?
That's Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. Okay.
Right.
Why?
Close, right?
How is it close?
Names.
Orson Welles.
Orwell and Orwellian. Or Wells and Orwell. Anyway, yeah, this is how it's always been. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to keep doing it. Is the plague on human society that causes us to never investigate things. And I know they're not easy things to investigate. I understand that they're painful. I understand that they hurt and they're scary. Yes, they do. But that's how it always has been, is just not a good enough excuse anymore. It was never a good enough excuse, but now it's like, okay.
Yeah, but just how it's always been is just there as a proxy, so I don't have to feel invulnerable and safe.
It's an easy excuse to, well, someone in the past has figured out that this is the right thing to do, so I will give them my agency and I'll just go along too.
Yeah, but like,
it's not far off from I'll write my check to the military so that they can deal with this.
Yeah.
Well, someone in the past has figured this out. Obviously, this is the right way to do it. We'll just keep going forward.
Yeah, I guess the reason why, my voice is now just squeaky high pitch is like, if you ask an average human of what is that they actually want at the end of the day, like at the end of their lifetime. And I think they would say that I wanted to feel love and I wanted to be at peace with the love that I felt. Like deep down, that's it.
Sure.
Like just regardless of all the human experiences, you kind of look at everything through that lens of love. Like you're like, oh, look at all the ways I didn't feel love and look all the ways I didn't show love. And I wish I showed more love, right? Like I think I'm just generalizing, but I think that is everyone's regret on their deathbed is I wished there was more love and I was able to be more vulnerable and I was able to show my heart more.
Right.
But at the time I felt unsafe to do so.
I don't think anyone's laying there going, I wish I'd closed it off more.
No, but that if I had to and we don't realize it until we're on our deathbed dying, right?
Yeah.
So let's just skip that part and go into right now and actually actualize that is how we always feel. At any one moment in our lifetime, we wish we showed more love and be more love than we are a second ago and a second before that and a second before that. So then on the deathbed, Citizen Kane style, you're not regretting 100% of your life. But maybe you're regretting the first 40 years or 20 years, not because they were bad, but because simply you could have inserted more love into that space.
Right.
That's it for humanity. Like there's nothing outside of that.
There's your North Star to line your compass up to.
Yeah. So
how can I add more love?
Yeah. But so this is where I get frustrated. Why not skip the bullshit and the pretense of anything other than that? Because billions of people have died already and they have already told us this. So let's just go, okay, deep down, that is actually the only thing that matters. And the truth is that is the only thing that I actually want out of any life. Like my life right now is I want to be able to open my heart and show more love. Let's skip the bullshit where we're not and then listen to how do we get there? That's fine. Let's admit, okay, this is what I want, but it turns out I'm struggling to be there. I'm admitting that to myself all the time. Like, fuck, I'm struggling to keep my heart open because the second something happens, the second something is done, fuck, I feel threatened. So let's just admit to that. This is what we want. This is what we don't know how to do because we have not practiced this at all. How do we get there? I'm telling you, you'll get there by admitting that this is what you want. And it's just a matter of staying vulnerable in your unsafe space and digging down to all the ways that you feel threatened by the world. And through that vulnerability, you realize I can start to open my heart. Solution. That's the solution.
Yeah.
That there's not like one way to get there. It's just a matter of commitment to that knowing. Watch 186 episodes, how to get there. And that's it. And then we're not in X propagating the Y, and now we're in space Z. And then in space Z, you are offering love, and you are love. And the reality is what is the magic that it could be, as opposed to the bullshit that everyone's trying not to experience, but yet experiences, but pretends like they don't know how to get there. I say this because that's how I am.
There you go. Problem solved.
Okay, yeah.
Just do that.
I guess. I'll lower my voice and just say, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.